Welcome to study number 18 in the book of Leviticus. We are getting to the very final chapters of this fantastic book. Hope you're enjoying this study. We are on chapter number 25 today in the book of Leviticus. Very interesting chapter. Let's look at the two questions that we're going to be trying to answer in this chapter. First one is this: how was the year of Jubilee reckoned, and what was its general purpose? And are there any corresponding spiritual blessings in Christ, and how can we enjoy them? Second question: what light is shed in this chapter on the principles governing our relationship to God and to one another in Christ? Well, let's read Leviticus chapter 25 together. We will not read the entire chapter, but it's a rather long chapter, but I would encourage you to read it by yourself at some point, the entire chapter. But let's look at part of that chapter today, beginning with verse 1. The Lord said to Moses on Mount Sinai, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land that I'm going to give you, the land itself must observe a Sabbath to the Lord." Did you catch that? The land itself must observe a Sabbath. Verse 3, "For 6 years sow your fields, and for 6 years prune your vineyards, and gather their crops. But in the 7th year the land is to have a Sabbath of rest, a Sabbath to the Lord. Do not sow your fields or prune your vineyards. Do not reap what grows of itself, or harvest the grapes of your untended vines. The land is to have a year of rest." So nothing that you normally put in the field, even if it comes back on its own voluntarily, you cannot eat it. Whatever the land yields that you did not plant ever before during the Sabbath year will be food for you, for yourself, your manservant and maidservant, and the hired worker and temporary resident who live among you, as well as for your livestock and the wild animals in your land. Whatever the land produces may be eaten. Count off 7 Sabbaths of years, 7 times 7 years, so that the 7 Sabbaths of years amount to a period of 49 years. Then have the trumpet sounded everywhere on the 10th day of the 7th month. On the Day of Atonement, sound the trumpet throughout your land. Consecrate then the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all of its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. Each one of you is to return to his family property, and each to his own clan. The 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. Do not sow and do not reap what grows of itself, or harvest the untended vines, for it is a jubilee and is to be holy for you. Eat only what is taken directly from the fields. In this year of jubilee, everyone is to return to his own property." Okay, so how does this work? Let's look at verse 14. "So if you sell land to one of your countrymen, or buy any from him, don't take advantage of each other. You're to buy from your countrymen on the basis of the numbers of years since the Jubilee." In other words, you're just leasing land up until this certain point in time that is every 50 years. So you may be leasing, in a sense, this land for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 48 years, whatever, but never more than that 49-year period. "And he is to sell it on the basis of the numbers of years left for harvesting crops on that land." Verse 16, "When the years are many, you are to increase the price. When the years are few, you are to decrease the price, because what he is selling you is the number of crops. Do not take advantage of each other, but fear your God. I am the Lord your God." Verse 18, "Follow my decrees and be careful to obey my laws, and you will live safely in the land. Then the land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill. Live there in safety." But you may ask, what will we eat in that 7th year if we don't plant or we don't harvest our crops? Verse 21, "I will send you such a blessing in the 6th year that the land will yield enough for 3 years. While you plant during the 8th year, you will eat from the old crop and will continue to eat from it until the harvest of the 9th year comes in." Man, I wish we could learn the secret of just obeying God. He will take care of us. Verse 23, the land must not be sold permanently, because the land is mine and you are only aliens and my tenants. Throughout the country that you hold as a possession, you must provide for the redemption of the land. Question number 1, how is the year of Jubilee reckoned, and what was its general purpose, and are there any corresponding spiritual blessings in Christ, and how can we enjoy those? Well, the year of Jubilee took place once every 50 years, 49-year period, and then a year of the Jubilee, and at that time all property was turned back to its original owner. All debts were forgiven. Slaves were set free. When we come to Christ, we experience our own year of Jubilee in that He forgives us of the debt of sin. We are born again. Once again, we get a fresh start before Him. The year of Jubilee, if it did anything, it offered everybody a fresh start at least once in the average lifetime. Question number 2, what light is shed in this chapter on the principles governing our relationship to God and to one another in Christ? Well, the year of Jubilee serves as a reminder that all things belong to God, and that we are all only temporary residents on this planet. While we're here, we have an obligation both to the land and we have an obligation to one another. We must not take advantage of either. We need to always consider the needs and the trials of others and what they're going through. And also, we need to be good stewards of this land, this planet that God has given us. I hope you've enjoyed this time in Leviticus. I hope that this next year will be a year of Jubilee, and I hope that year of Jubilee will start for you today. God bless. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.